Hello, this is Margaret Ajibola, the STEM Positive Disruptor. And on today, I have a special guest, um, Carlien Bou-Chedid. She's oh man, I'm not going to say anything yet. Let me talk about my platform. The reason why we set up this platform is we want to educate, want to raise awareness, we want to change people's perception and demystify what STEM is. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We want to showcase the diverse roles, the diverse people that work in the industry. We want to show the different areas and the seniority of people that work in there. We want to infuse more young people to come into the industry. We want to bring the public into our domain because it's so important. Sometimes what the public perceive as what an engineer or scientist or a technologist or mathematician is so different. And we want to showcase the different people that work in the industry. So without further ado, I have a special guest. She's amazing. I first met her many years ago at the WFEO, that's the World Federation Engineering Organizations. And I didn't really know what I know now. So I'm I'm just so grateful that she's from my busiest schedule, she's able to come on board today. And I'm going to introduce her because she's got so many accolades behind her name. I'm so proud of her. She's the first Ghanaian, first female Ghanaian that became an engineer. She was also the 48th president and the first woman that ran the Ghanaian Institute of Engineers. She's also, it's amazing. She's also the first woman to become and also the first Ghanaian who became the president of the Federation of African Engineering Organizations. And I'm just so impressed with her. I mean, she's going to tell us more about her background because I don't want her to, be talking about her when Carlin's right in front of us and tell us more about herself. So without further ado, welcome, Carlin. Thank you so much for coming on board. Please tell us more about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the nice things that you've said so far.
It's the truth, though.
Just one small correction.
Okay.
The first female engineer in Ghana. I wasn't there. A few before.
Okay.
Maybe first structural engineer, but not first female.
Okay, no problem there. Is everything else correct?
Yes, everything else sounds correct.
That's good, great.
So, well, I always say I sort of fell accidentally into these positions. I just happened to be born at the right time. I always wanted to be somebody who was innovating from my childhood. And so engineering sort of naturally was the choice. Of course, I also knew what engineering was about because I had a father who was an engineer, and he also made sure that we understood what he did. So engineering was a natural choice. I ended up doing civil engineering. That wasn't a natural choice.
Oh.
I'd wanted to do mechanical engineering because I always wanted to invent gadgets and so on. And but when I asked my father what mechanical engineers in Ghana did, at the time he said, well, they did a lot of maintenance and so on. And that didn't sound interesting enough to me. Maintenance, it wasn't innovating and coming up with new things. So I started thinking about another line of engineering that would allow me to be more creative. And then civil engineering came up. Well, it was, you were always creating new buildings. And of course, I love the smell of wet cement. So that was.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, water and cement gives a nice smell. So
it's quite interesting. I love the smell of tar, so it's really strange. So I mean, it's okay. It's okay.
So that's how I ended up in engineering.
Okay.
I enjoyed every bit of it, learning, and I enjoyed, most of all, I enjoyed the design part. When I was designing a building and so on, that I felt I was really engineering.
Yeah. And that's thank you so much. And that's the great thing about engineers as well. We're not just there's so many different facets to engineering. I think sometimes we get caught about what we think engineers are. And that's what I mean by bringing the public into our domain means that they can see the different elements, the different levels, the different dimensions of what engineers do. And you're a prime example. You talked about you enjoyed the designing part of it. There were other aspects to it. You know, we are communicators. We problem solve anyway. Structural engineering or civil engineer, as you say, it's building, it's creating buildings, but it's much more than that. It's also about the highway. There's so many things that civil engineers can get involved in. So just tell us about your journey, because have you just always worked in Ghana, or you traveled the world before you then settled in Ghana?
Let me say, okay, I studied in the UK,
Yeah.
in university, and when I finished, I'd done a computing project as my final year project. So I was actually engaged in the computing department for a year after I finished, developing a software interface for simulation model that had been done. It was a complex model, and so I was developing a graphical interface that would make it more user-friendly. And I did for about a year. And I know I was, told that, computing was the thing, but I mean, at that time, I could not see beyond engineering. So I finished that, came to Ghana, worked with the consulting engineers in Ghana, and they were government consultants at the time. They were, I think at the time, they were the biggest consulting firm. There weren't many private consultants. So we got a lot of work. Many major projects around the country were by the architectural and engineering services. And I also got to work with many disciplines. Let me just say that one thing that I found a bit irritating when I started was that because they were government consultants, they also looked after government buildings where there were problems. So there was a lot of work going around renovating old buildings. Of course, I still had my desire to do, but I really used to get very irritated having to go to analyze, what went wrong in a building.
Yeah.
After some time, I actually began to like it and learn a lot more from it, and it really helped improve the way I went about my design, because I knew what could go wrong 10 years, 30 years down the line.
Yeah.
It also ignited a different passion in me, the kinds of things that workmen do that they don't pay attention to, that creates problems later on down the line. So that
and yeah, just thank you for that. And that's so important, because sometimes even though we know what to do, and sometimes we work, because it's not just an individual, it's a team of people that work together, and everyone has different levels and different standards, and it's also been seen that and know how to improve that. And as you're saying, I mean, initially it wasn't something that you felt was, why am I going back to this and be doing refurbish or refixing the old buildings? But then you realize there's a need, and there was a reasons behind that. We also learned what can be done to improve it as well. And that is so important. This is what engineers do. It's not just about putting in place something and then move on to the next line. Sometimes you have to go back and refix and do things or improve on what has already been done as well. But if I can just go back slightly with you, because I mean, again, I'm basing on this article I read in a newspaper, and it talked about your upbringing and your parents. Your dad was a civil engineer, and your mom was a teacher.
Yeah.
And one of the comments you made was that your parents were intentional in the sort of programs, things they brought in front of you and enthuse you. So can you expand on that? Because again, not everyone has that opportunity, but again, we just never know, because sometimes you can trigger off something in someone's parents' mind about, hold on a minute, maybe there's things I can do to encourage my young ones to consider STEM or education itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that my parents were intentional, and the country itself at the time was very intentional about bringing up more science, oriented people. Because I recall, like my mother, for example, because she was a teacher, she knew the kinds of tools and so on they were around. I had these prisoner rods to play with, which meant that when I was actually doing maths and arithmetic, fractions and things, I could visualize. I really understood what it was.
Yeah.
You know, about cubes and things, I really understood what you meant and why the figures turned out the way they were.
Yeah.
Then, and I said the country was also, fairly intentional. We had a lot of science, children's programs were science fiction things. We used to watch, I think, Thunderbirds, Flash Gordon, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And even local programs. We used to have young scientists, local this thing. And they actually made sure that science was introduced early. And so I always knew somehow at the back of my mind that science was important and do a lot, and science, was something very useful for society. So I think being intentional too is important.
Yeah. Do you made a good point though. Because it seems like Ghana was very forward thinking in their approach and how they brought things to life. Because again, I guess with the building infrastructure in Ghana, there are lots of things that need to be done. And it seems to be like the president must be at that time. So was quite visionary in saying that, hold on a minute, we need people that we need to build up our own ingrown talent to be able to do the work that needs to be done itself. And that's so important. And you're so right. We have to be intentional, but not everybody thinks in that way. And that's the problem, I think, maybe in some cases. I know that life takes over and you don't have the time, but if you're going to bring in children to this world, you need to nurture them in such a way that allows them to see the value add and the reasons why we do what we do, and have time for them. And I think that's the great thing about your parents as well. Even though your dad was a civil engineer, and I know he was the president of GhIE too as well, but your mom was a teacher, and that's quite nice. And we're not saying that everyone has to be in that same role, but at least if you're intentional what you want for your children, you can nurture them and signpost them in the right way itself. So thank you very much for that. So fast forwarding, Ghana seems to be doing lots of. Do you think that's the same thing now? Is that still the same drive, same vision, same forward thinking that Ghana's having, where STEM is concerned, or engineering as a whole?
Yeah, I think that at the moment, everybody's talking about STEM. A lot of things are being done. I think it's being done a bit too late. We are targeting children who are maybe in their teens, and they've already lost their, youthful years. We haven't realized that what they see and what they do, even at 5 years and so on, can affect, what they do much later on. I think that we need to do a lot more at the junior levels than later on, because like I said, I remember a lot of things that I did, and that was because we had the first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He had that vision. I recall that we used to do things like you go to the science museum, you see there, they bring a moon rock to Ghana, all the go there, you learn about astronauts. We did all those things, and I think that the government were, fairly intentional at that time. And I think that the governments now can take a cue from that. It's not just talking about science. It's not just what you do in the classroom. I think a lot has to do with what the children watch on TV and so on. All those things too need to be tailored towards the vision that you have.
Indeed. Do you know something? You're right. And I don't think it's just Ghana. I think it's across the world. Everyone's saying the same thing, that, we need to get our children at a very young age. We need to nurture them. So at a very young age, primary school, and the governments need to find a way to infuse and get to them before it gets too late. As you mentioned, it sometimes we try and catch them when it's too late. They've already formed some ideas of what they see as being the way forward for them. So what you would like them to do and what they see is what they would like to do is so far apart. And the only way you can give them that balance is to start from a very young age. So thank you so much for that. So fast forwarding, because there's so much that you're currently you're still the president of the Federation of African Engineering Organizations, aren't you?
Just handed over
Oh.
a week or so ago.
Oh.
February 27th.
Wow.
So it's more than a week, but I just handed over to the new president, who is from Rwanda.
Wow.
So I'm now what we call the IPP, the immediate past president.
Wow. Well, I am so proud of you because you've achieved so much. I mean, you are a strong, powerful female role model because, please don't think I'm saying it just because there's so many people feel that it's out of the reach. But look, you live in Ghana, so you're from Africa. Sometimes they say, "Oh, Africa, they can't." But look at you. You are a prime example that it's possible, and it's slow and steady, but you've achieved it. And it's not even just because you're female, but because you've added value to the organizations that you've been involved with, and also you moving and opening the opportunities, the doors to bring people into your environment. And so that's why we're celebrating you, Carlien. I am celebrating you. I am proud of you. And I'm so grateful I got to meet you because I didn't know so much. But every time I met you, you were very cool and relaxed. You don't say much, but you were. And I'm so grateful that I've met you, and you are an inspiration. That I believe that when people listen, see what you have achieved, they know you can break those barriers down because you are a prime example of breaking those barriers down. It wasn't based on what your father did, but he enthused you to go for something, and he explained what was going on. You knew in your mind what you wanted as well. I think that makes a big difference as well, and that's why you've achieved so much as well. So fast forwarding, because I know you were involved with you're still involved with the WFEO. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
council at the moment.
Yeah, and I'll say before, so you can basically give us an update of what you see. I know they organize a court. I'm going to read it because I don't really. It's called the Engineering and Capacity Building Education Forum, and it says that there was a theme last year in August where they said engineering the future through quality engineering education partnership, capacity building, and innovative structure. Can you please tell us more about that? Because we're talking about education. What does that? I mean, what is it they're doing? Because there's so many organizations trying to do so many different things. But sometimes we talk a lot about it. Some areas get the benefit and others don't. Is there things you can share of knowledge or things that you think can make a difference in a bigger scheme of things?
Okay, so what we did at that forum, it was held in the Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. And it was a forum that brought together people from all over Africa and from outside as well. And we were talking about education and the things that we needed to do, especially within Africa. And we had some very interesting examples of things that were being done. There was a young lady, Sibu the engineer, the young lady engineer who was writing books for children, explaining what engineering was. There were so many really interesting presentations. The minister responsible for higher education in Zimbabwe came and took us through, what he called Education 5.0 and what they had done in education in Zimbabwe, how they had reoriented the tertiary institutions, not just to innovate, because they do that now. He said he came, he looked at what they were doing. They do that now. They do it so well. They end up with very nice projects. They even do prototypes and it sits on the shelf somewhere, and that's the end. And linked it up to them industrializing, and he gave examples, several examples of industries that have been created by these universities, these tertiary institutions, and so on. So the students leave school and they've already got, jobs. They've created work for themselves and for others. And I thought that was really impressive. and it's the kind of thing that we are sharing, advising other African countries to do. So maybe look at your education system, what you can do to change the way in which they operate currently. So these are some of the ideas that came out, and we had, of course, there were resolutions that came out that are shared amongst the African countries.
Yeah, that's impressive. You know something, the reason why I'm asking this question again, because the people who listen to our conversation, they can gain Ghana ideas again, because not, although not one solution fits all, but there are bits and pieces that we can take from each other and find it to improve the way we do things as well. And we go back to when you spoke about us capturing the young people at a very young age. It resonates across all the global world, because this is something that everyone's screaming that we don't know how to get our children to become more enthused about STEM or even education as a whole. And I think the foundation is getting them early, because again, children are quite visual. They look at things and they can see things, but also the internet or the way we work nowadays is that everything is so close to you. It's no longer you have to travel out. It can come right to your doorstep. So using social media, which means that your eyes are open to other opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have had, or when we were growing up, it wasn't that so in front of us. We normally had to travel out to find out. But now it's right at your doorstep through the internet. And so this is quite good. So thank you so much. So what would you say, and just moving fast forward, because again, I love what the way Ghana has moved forward, the way they think. And of course, the government still needs to do things to make a better improvement and help to nurture our young people. But what would you say, based on your experience, based on your years of you being in the industry and your positions, the roles you've taken on, the people you've met, what are the things that you think can be improved, and what are the solutions that you think should be put in place? Because we need to nurture, we need to change how we see things. We shouldn't complain. Of course we can complain, but we complain anyway. So why not bring practical solutions at the same time? So please, whatever you feel is a way that we should start thinking as a way forward to do that.
I think that the first thing we need to change is the way we teach STEM subjects. And that means that we need to retrain our teachers. We need to give them better tools with which
Oh, you froze.
Yeah, it seems I lost you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So
are you okay? Sorry. Yeah.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right. We'll just quickly. Okay. Okay. So please tell us what.
So I believe that we need to look at the way we teach STEM subjects in school, especially maths and science, and we need to retrain our teachers and give them better tools for teaching. And better tools, especially something like maths. It's not everybody who can just visualize things or can understand things just because you've written them now. Some people need to actually have a feel of what you are saying. Yeah. So if it's numbers, you need something to represent those numbers. And we need to represent the concepts we are teaching in different ways so that it makes it easier for children to understand. And all that will come with training teachers. The same science, and we have some young men who came up with some toolkits for science. They have little science sets and you can do so many experiments. And then engineers use that in a boot camp about a couple of years ago. And you should have seen these children, when they took these tools, did the few experiments and then a light bulb, they succeed and the thing comes of, the excitement on their face, and they enjoyed it. Now, if your science subjects were taught in that manner, you are not likely to forget the concepts you are teaching. You are likely to find those subjects very exciting.
Yeah.
And you look forward to it. So we need to do more, with the way in which we introduce these subjects to children in schools.
Thank you. It's so true. And I think this is it. And again, talk about starting young and how we teach and retraining teachers as well, and having the tools, the right type of tools that will enable them to be able to provide the best support, to be able to nurture our young people to enjoy what STEM is, that science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I'm so grateful. I know you're very, very busy ladies. So I'm just grateful that you can spend some time with me just to have this conversation. And again, as I said, I am celebrating because you have broken down barriers that, it's been there for so long, and you're changing, making changes, and your impact. How would you're so gentle. You don't, but what I've seen, it's like it's not one that you push yourself out. You're not bigging up yourself. It's one of those people that, your presence is felt without you saying a lot, if that makes sense. And to me, that's wonderful, because there's so many people feel they have to shout at the top of their voice. Well, not literally, but they feel they have to pump up themselves. But whereas you're more of that quiet presence that's very, very powerful. So I'm so grateful that you've come on board. Thank you so much for your patience.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, thank you again. So thank you very much. This is Margaret Ajibode, the STEM Positive Disruptor, and my special guest. What an amazing change agent, has broken down barriers, made a huge difference in the Ghanaian system, but also bringing people in to see how things can be done. So getting our young people at a very young age, retraining our teachers, making them do things, see how you teach, and helping our young people to find ways to enthuse them so that they can enjoy the subjects that will make that are important, that can make an impact in our world for later on. So again, please listen to this podcast, because this conversation is just amazing. It's so short, but it's so sweet. And I want you to enjoy it, but also spread the word as well. So thank you very much. Thank you again very much, Carlien.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.